Adam Scott plays a writer travelling to Ireland to visit the honeymoon spot of his deceased parents, but the hotel might be haunted. This is Hokum, the new film from director Damian McCarthy, and after his previous efforts, Caveat and Oddity, the expectations are fairly high. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Oh, top of the podcast to ya.
This is a horror movie podcast, and we are here today to talk about a film that happens to be set in Ireland. If you couldn't guess by Tim's just uncanny accent at the start of the show. But yeah, this is a movie called Hokum, directed by was it Cormac McCarthy, if I'm remembering correctly? No, Damian McCarthy. Who's Cormac? Cormac's someone.
He's an author. He wrote like The Road.
Okay. No, I feel good about that. That means I'm just not making it up out of nowhere. That's fine. Damian McCarthy. Sorry to conflate McCarthys together, but you all sound alike. But yes, Damian McCarthy, who previously did Caveat and Oddity, were his two previous films, but this one's got Adam Scott in it, so it feels a bit bigger, even though it's still it's set in Ireland, which is like his last film was. But yes, premise wise, Adam Scott plays a writer who goes to Ireland and visits this little remote hotel that his parents once visited for their honeymoon, to scatter their ashes, and creepy things happen, I guess. I feel I'm not even sure how much I want to give away up front, to be honest, because I feel like it kind of plays things close to the chest, and then what the movie's actually about kind of unfolds as it goes. But of course, we will start spoiler free. We always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. And if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, do hit the like button. Helps us out a bunch if you do. And you can support us and get more bonus stuff by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But I'll tell you a bit more about that at the end of the episode. So are you excited for this one, Tim?
So it's funny. There's a little bit of a story here. Now, I mean, if you remember when, we did our, preview episode at the start of the year, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that this was, one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Like, if I had to talk about the, at least horror-wise, the three things I was most excited for, it probably would have been Send Help, Hokum, and Resident Evil, which, at this point, I've seen 2 out of the 3 so far. Because I really like this dude's movies. Like Caveat was pretty good, although it's been a while since I've seen it. I wonder if maybe I'll like it a little bit more now after seeing his other stuff. But like, I loved Oddity, and again, if you go back to that episode, I'm sure I probably talked about how I was excited about whatever he's gonna do next. And I was really looking forward to this. I knew absolutely nothing about it. Other than that Adam Scott was in it, I don't think I even saw a trailer for it. I don't really seek out trailers that much anymore unless it's like something I'm really excited for, because usually I'll see stuff like a million times when I'm at the theaters anyway. And then, if you can avoid it, like, why, they give so much stuff away. Why, ruin that for yourself, whatever. So I was going into this pretty fresh, but what's kind of interesting is, I'm super psyched for it. And then a few days, before it comes out, I wasn't seeking this out or anything, but, you go online and you have your algorithms and stuff and whatever, things just like pop up. I don't really pay too much close attention, but I saw, I think it was like a review from IGN. And I didn't read the review again. I wasn't seeking it out or anything, but I just looked down at the score and they gave it like a 4 out of 10. So I was a little like, oh shit, like I'm still super psyched for this movie, but like that's really low. Like, if it was something like, oh, they gave it like a 5 or a 6, it's like, all right, well, maybe they don't really jive with this person's things. But like a 4 to me is like, oh no, there's like something fundamentally, bad about this. So honestly, I was a wee bit nervous going in, but then I actually had some friends that saw it like on Friday. I ended up seeing it on Sunday, and I started to hear like more from people I trust that it was good. So by the time I was going to see it on Sunday, I was a bit more excited. But for a second, there's a day when I was like, oh no, please don't tell me that this is bad.
So Ian G. Norton, that's what IGN stands for. He made Alleged Astray. Wasn't trustworthy, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really pay much attention to them anymore. Like, I mean, I guess most nerds on the internet, like, I would follow and read more of their stuff back in like the early 2000s or whatever. But I don't know, they do seem a bit more like, you know, not like full on clickbaity or search engine-y, you know, SEO optimization kind of stuff, but there's definitely a lot of like of that kind of crap that they put out that it's like, this thing is downhill or whatever. But I mean, no shade to the person that did the review. I mean, I didn't read it, so they could have had very legitimate, you know, problems and stuff with it. But yeah, I don't really care too much about them.
It's a very specific thing to say, but it was a speed bump on the anticipation, is what you were trying to say. Just seeing the score was
Exactly.
a little bit of a speed bump. I get what you're going for, even if you made it oddly personal by attacking the writer's, livelihood and family, and tried to dox them and send in bomb threats and whatever else you were doing over the weekend.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's just my normal course of business, of course.
Yes, of course. That's the build up to a new movie. Is what gets you going. It gets the juices flowing.
Yeah.
I
haven't seen this movie yet, but how dare you?
Yeah, I liked Caveat. I had some rough edges from what I remember, but I do agree as well that it'd be interesting to go back and watch it again now that because technically we've not done it on streams. It'd be interesting to see it again, having gotten more familiar with the director's work and how he does things. But some things did stick out in watching that were quite good. And in Oddity, yeah, we were very positive on. There was a lot of really interesting, unique things about it, where it pulled some sort of turns and it wasn't necessarily just focusing on the usual tropes. At least in the same way, it viewed them in a very different lens, perhaps, than what you usually do. So going into this, I knew nothing about the plot. I had somehow avoided a trailer. Usually I see horror trailers because they play before other horror movies that we're also doing, right? And when we get to even more streams today, for people who are on Patreon, you'll hear about some of those trailers. I've got things to say. Okay. But I somehow avoided this one. I didn't really know anything about it. I'd seen the poster. I knew Adam Scott was in it, and that was it. So went in pretty blind, and so we'll find out what we thought then, I suppose. We'll get into it. I did laugh though because the movie starts with 8 different companies. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, it's a true low-budget movie. You know it's a real low-budget movie when there's 8, like when you start laughing at how many, there's another, studio logo or another production company or whatever coming up. And some of them, for this one, sounded really, because sometimes they'll make a new company for a movie, so when it came up saying, Spooky Pictures, I'm like, you've just made that up. That's not a real company.
You know what's also funny is I noticed one of the producers was Dr. blah blah blah, which to me just sounds like, oh, they're doing the Evil Dead thing where they go around their town and ask their friends' parents for money or something. Like it doesn't sound like a movie producer. It's just probably a local businessman or something that was sure, I'll give you a couple of $1,000.
Yeah, I need to fly in Adam Scott from America. Can you chip in a few euro, please? Thank you. I'm sure that's how the conversations went. Yeah. But so I do wonder how that actually that ended up happening. I wonder if Adam Scott had maybe seen his previous movies or something, and that sort of opened the door to the possibility or whatever. Because other than his inclusion, it's still a pretty Irish set. Pretty most of the cast are Irish. It's very, very Irish in many ways, but just Adam Scott's there in the middle of it.
I think this movie is going to be eye-opening to a lot of Americans who just assume most people in Ireland are named Sean or something, when it's as I was watching this, I was like, oh, Irish people, they're named Fergal and Albie and stuff
Okay, that was a shock to you, was it? There was also one named Jerry. I can't imagine that one threw you for that much of a loop.
That one was normal course of business. But I'm assuming that it's spelled like weird with like symbols and like upside down O's and stuff.
No, it's good. On IMDb, it's just spelled like regular old Jerry. But yes, there are some weird Irish spellings of names, some of which have confused me in the past, especially when it's like a name that has a regular spelling, but then there's like a weird Irish spelling, and it's like, what the hell is this name? But yeah, so well, I'm glad you felt educated. All right, Ted, just before we get started properly, I just want to ask, like, if you want to make some stupid leprechaun joke, I'm just giving you the window now. I don't want to have to be fearing it all episode, okay?
No, surprisingly, I didn't have anything planned. So I'll let you off the, you're off the hook, scot-free, Adam scot-free, as it were. I will say something that did kind of make me laugh. So me and my wife, we had a little date night for this one. And like usually, like if we're gonna go out, I'll be like, "Hey, do you want to like get a babysitter this day, and we'll go get like movie and do like dinner and a movie?" And she'll be like, "Yes." Like, all right, and no questions asked. So like as we were driving there, I was like, "Oh wait, did I even tell you like what movie we're gonna see?" She's like, "Nope." I was like, "Do you want to be surprised?" She's like, "Yeah." So we're sitting down in the movie, and then like it starts playing and stuff, and like at the opening scene, which it's kind of weird if you haven't seen the movie, but like it opens in like this desert.
Yeah, there's a weird desert scene, which is kind of like thematically there's a reason for it, but it's very unrelated to the rest of the movie visually and like location wise and all that.
And so as it starts, like my wife leans over to me and she's like, "Oh, I know what we're seeing now." And I was like, it's kind of weird that she was able to get it from this, but okay, whatever. And then like after the movie, I was like, "Oh, so like how are you able to like figure it out so quick?" And she's like, "Oh no, I thought we were going to see The Mummy."
Oh, that's funny. Yes.
I was like, "No, I would properly warn you if that was our plans."
Yeah. And also just for the American audience, if you stumbled onto this review, I'm not Irish. I know a lot of Americans confuse Scottish and Irish together. These are not my people. I am very fond of Ireland, but not my place. Just FYI.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just getting that out of there. All right. My fear of Tim making a leprechaun joke was because he likes the leprechaun movies and their dog shit. That's the running gag here. All right, Tim, what did you think of Hokum?
I mean, getting Damian McCarthy to reboot the Leprechaun franchise would be like a dream come true.
No, what a waste of his time. What a waste of his and everyone's time. What did you think of Hokum?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved it. I was not disappointed in the slightest. I thought this movie rocked on so many levels. It's interesting. Again, I think I need to do this more often. Like, it was fun going into it just really not knowing anything. Like, again, there's that kind of weird opening scene. It's like, okay, what's that? Which, I mean, I don't think that would have been in the trailer or anything, but like, I was like, okay, this is strange. And then, as like the story progresses, I really didn't have any idea where it's going. And I think what's so good about McCarthy is, on a technical level, he just seems like such a craftsman. Like, he knows how to like present spaces to you and really like immerse you in the environment. And there's so many times where I was like, oh my god, like, don't go there, or like, oh, just the way he's playing with like this simple object or this one part of the room or the darkness or the sounds or whatever. Like, everything is just working on such like a high level that it's so good. I thought Adam Scott was great. Like, in general, like, I'm a fan of him, but he's done like a few horror or genre-y things here or there, but I don't really kind of think of him as his space. But I really thought he killed it. I like how he's like, he's definitely a jerk, but I don't know, he's still pretty likable. Like, I enjoyed following him and rooting for him and all this stuff. And I'm curious, if you'll agree with this, but I thought this like felt very survival horror-y. Like, you have this character like exploring this space and then having to like kind of like solve puzzles and like use like items and stuff to help with these things. Like it was definitely giving me like, you know, like Resident Evil, Silent Hill vibes in a way, which obviously I adore. Yeah, I don't know. Like I really don't have too much negative. There's like one part that I wasn't super crazy about when I watched it, but I think by the end though, there's a bit of a justification for it. So I kind of softened on it, but very minor nitpick. Yeah, and then also like, you know, I mean, we talked about this before, where like at this point we've seen like literally thousands of horror movies. We're very desensitized to this stuff. So like, and obviously like, you know, we're grown men and stuff. So, you know, like we don't really get scared, you know, usually when we're watching these movies, which, you know, with no shade to anyone that does. I mean, that's a fine emotion to have, especially if you're watching a horror movie. And yeah, and I'm not saying I was scared by this movie, but I do think this is like a pretty scary, creepy movie. Like if I was watching this, you know, when I was like a younger kid getting into horror movies, this is probably one that, you know, I'd want to like, you know, leave some hallway lights on or like watch some goofy comedy or thing after, because yeah, I think it does pretty well in like the scare department and everything. But yeah, I was very happy with it, suffice it to say.
Yeah, it's funny because like the movie starts and it's just like you say, the opening scene's kind of like, what the hell is this? What was happening here? I didn't know much about the movie, but I wasn't expecting Conquistador or whatever I'm looking at right now. But like, yeah, once it gets into it and it like establishes the character and it's doing the setup, and you know, it's got some typical, I mean, not so much that it's typical plot wise, but just like, you know, like lots of horror movies start with a character traveling, right, to a location. And then they get there and you start to introduce the little signs or whatever or where it's going. But I'm like, okay, I don't really know what this is exactly. Is it just going to be a spooky haunting type movie? Is it going to be this type of movie? So on and so on. And it's a sort of thing where everything was perfectly fine. And it was, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, like, it's not done anything to like wrong me or anything yet. But I think the impressive thing about perhaps what I'm realizing about McCarthy's like style is that once it gets to the real meat of the movie, right? Because there's a bit of setup to get to like what I would say is the main story, right? It takes a little while to get there because there's some steps to setting it up. But once it gets there, it's like so well set up and crafted that like everything has so much more meaning, and like all the possibilities for how it'll play out once it is set up feel like they're already kind of so like set in stone of like, this is a possible way out of it, but some luck will be required. We've set up this thing, we've set up that thing. One thing you brought up was the use of geography and the sense of space, and that was something that like, yeah, has been a feature in all of his movies at this point, where this movie, even perhaps further than the other two that we've watched, not just made use of the space in a creepy way, but actually kind of made it more like plot, like I guess plot heavy, or like, you know, there's actually kind of like a, you know, there's a creepy area, but then there's an extended creepy area, and it's like there's like lore behind the extended creepy area, and like by the time you venture there, you've heard so much about it, and like it feels like it's so well paced in the sense of how it unfolds all these elements, and the character's problem solving, he's using his smarts. I do wonder. No, well, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with your survival horror comparison, because I can kind of see what you're saying. I will say, I think one of the reasons why you might have thought that is, and I won't spoil the context here until we're in spoilers, but at one point you hear like sort of like a moan and some chains rattling, and I swear it sounds exactly like Lisa from the first Resident Evil remake. It sounds like Lisa Trevor coming for you. And I was like, oh shit, that just sounded like that. So I definitely had the thought, but it was a bit more kind of like, because that one thing was particularly evoking something from a Resident Evil.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess what I mean with that is like, it just reminded me of, you know, horror games in the sense that there's like, oh, there's progression. Like, you know, oh, you're, yeah, like you're in this one area, then you have to go in this other area. And then there's like, you know, again, not giving like stuff away, but there's like an item that he has to use to kind of like, it's basically like, you know, a Resident Evil puzzle or something where it's like, okay, how do you get to this area?
Sure.
And having a way, you know what I mean? Like
it's kind of like a one it's the only thing he does that with, but I see the comparison. Yeah, there's definitely some of that there. It's kind of like, I guess I don't think of it quite strictly in those terms because it's a lot more confined than even a Resident Evil game would be.
Sure.
It's a lot more kind of smaller scale. So I wasn't necessarily jumping straight to that, but but I think the movie's very good. It sets things up. Something else I'm noticing, another parallel, particularly between this and Oddity, and maybe Caveat as well, but again, it's been a few years since I've seen Caveat, so my memory's a little bit faded on it, is that he very much likes having and again, I don't want to be too spoilery here, but he very much likes having the obvious horror plot, or the obvious horror element, which is, the spooky thing, but then, and I won't say what it is in this case, but both this and Oddity have a second thing, which is also going on, which is almost unrelated to the spooky thing, but they kind of end up, weaving together and like affecting each other as the movie goes on. This very much has that, and it was actually something where once I realized it was doing that again, like much like Oddity, I was like, oh, this is his shtick. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I wasn't annoyed by it, because one, very few other people are doing it, and each time he's done it, it's been in a very different way, so I have no complaints. But I'm like, oh, this is like his calling card. He likes doing kind of these two layers of the things going on, and then interweaving them as it progresses.
Yeah, I think it's just so impressive, just like the technical craft that he has, because I could see other people attempting to do some of the stuff in this movie and just really fumbling it or whatever, but again, he, like you're kind of saying before, like his setups, they're just so well done, and then it just leads to these really great payoffs, and I'm just really impressed with it. Like, as much as I'm watching the movie and enjoying it, like, I'm also just kind of like looking at it on like a craft level and just being like, man, like, I don't know, he's like, as enjoyable as like, some other movies we watch are. Like, I feel like, there's not as many people doing it like on a craft level as him. It's great.
Yeah, he's an emerging talent, I guess we'll call him. I think the funny thing is there's so many moments in the movie that, like, I know how they could be, because, like, it's not like every single moment individually is this, like, wholly original thing. In fact, several of the moments you can point at and go, oh, I've seen this moment done much worse 100 times, because it's not like a super original horror movie thing to have, the creepy noise in the distance, or the jump scare with the face, popping up, either there or behind them or whatever it is. And but when it happens in here, almost every time it's effective and it's well done, and it feels like, one, it's not overdoing it for a start, right? It doesn't feel like it's constantly doing the haunted house shtick just to kind of keep you entertained. But when it does do it, there's thought going into it, how it looks and how it's presented, and it feels like a big deal because you've waited a bit longer for it, and it just, the execution is everything. And I think we said that in Oddity as well, is that the execution is what arguably, like, the story was good as well. Like, there were some interesting story elements, but the execution was probably more than 2/3 of why it was good or great. And I think the same is somewhat true here. And I think there's some good story stuff in here, but I would say that more than half of why it's good is because of the execution. It's because of how well it's dished out, how good things look, and how well you feel that sense of space and understand maybe the rules of, like, the predicament he's in. Like, it does feel like there's rules to this as it's going. Some literal rules that are brought up, but even just unspoken ones that you just, like, communicate with the audience, where you understand he can't get to there from there, but he can maybe do this. He can't do, you can't see this from there. But, just simple things like that. Once you're established, you're like, okay, how do we get around that? And the character has to think about how to get around those things.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Like, I don't think there's an ounce of fat on this movie. Like, it is just, like, pretty much from the start, sucked me in. And my wife quite enjoyed it as well. And she was saying, like, yeah, I was pretty much on edge the whole movie, which I think is pretty understandable, because after, like, I mean, I guess there's even, like, some, like, minor scare stuff in the beginning, but once he kind of gets into, like, the proper meat of the movie, it really doesn't, like, let up. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I mean, I think if I was saying, oh, is there any part which I'm less excited about? It probably is the opening, say, half hour, and not because it's bad, but just because, like, the real meat of this, and this is a good thing, is that once it gets into it, it's like, oh, it's got ideas, it's got stuff that it wants to do, and they're all worthwhile ideas, but it takes a little bit of time to set those things up, and the setup's inherently just kind of the necessary part of the movie. And that's, again, that sounds almost more negative than I want it to sound. There's nothing wrong with that first 30 minutes. It's perfectly fine. Right. It's just that I don't want to say it feels more generic compared to the rest of the movie, but in a way it does, because it's not necessarily unique yet. It's like it gets really unique once it gets into the meat of it.
Yeah, like you kind of have to wait to see where it's going, which, again, that's not a bad thing. Like, you have to do that with like any movie, but yeah, like the more enjoyable stuff is once it really gets into like the nitty gritty, and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm like, this is firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, so no, it's very good. I think it's well directed. The story's pretty good, and I like the cast as well. I mean, obviously Adam Scott's is good. I think all the Irish actors were, by and large, good additions to everything, and it was, it is an interesting range where I appreciated that, despite the fact that it is obviously set in Ireland, it didn't really feel like it was like that important that it was in Ireland. I mean, I guess they kind of say that the supernatural thing, maybe is like an Irish folklore type thing, but other than just the mention of like, it's something that's been here a long time, it's not really like, this could be anywhere, right? If there wasn't a book that said Irish folklore on it at one point, it's irrelevant. It just happens to be in Ireland, and like I actually kind of like that a lot about it. Is it's just because it feels more like normal, just Irish people walking around, as opposed to the weird Irishman in the forest who's like knows about spooky things, and he's like, aha, the fairies will come and get you, my laddie, and whatever else.
The Irish version of Crazy Ralph, basically.
Basically, Crazy Ralph mixed with that character who knows about like the boogeyman from the cave paintings kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Yes, the cavemen, they were scared of the boogeyman. God, still have PTSD over that stupid movie. So no, all that stuff is good. Yeah, and to be fair, like, I mean, I had to go a bit later because the first show, for some reason, there was less showings today than there was the rest of the week. So the showing I went to was a bit later in the day than I normally go. I try to go when it's quiet, just so I don't have to, put up with people.
Deal with the riffraff.
The riffraff, yes. But it was a fairly full showing, the one I went to today. So.
Yeah, the theater I went to, they have like certain theaters that are like smaller than other ones, so I was looking at like the tickets and I was like, oh, I guess this is in one of the smaller ones. But
mine too. Yeah, mine's was in like there's basically, I mean, it's not even that much of a range. There's like two sizes. There's like out of the 14 screens, I think 6 of them are the small size and the other 8 are the big size, and that's just
yeah, that's probably about similar to ours. And then so when I bought our tickets like in the afternoon, there was only 2 other people there, but then by the time we got there, it was actually fairly full. And then when we got to the theater, though, the parking lot was super packed, and I was kind of like, I wonder what that's all for. And the only thing I can really think of is I guess there's probably a lot of people for Devil Wears Prada too. I'm assuming.
Well, my theater had like 15 showings for Devil Wears Prada 2, and then like another 15 for Michael. So I think those 2 are bringing the people in.
Yeah. I guess people are still into that.
Yeah. What's funny, actually, is I got a trailer for Scary Movie 6, which looks awful, by the way. It looks like absolutely dreadful. But it starts off as kind of like a parody of Michael, right? And it says, only one, that's the only pop star who truly touched these fans. And I thought it was still something for Michael, and I went, that's a bit of a bold thing to put in the trailer. But then I guess it was just them actually making an intentional joke. But anyway, yes. Yeah. So those are, I mean, to be fair, it's nice that the box office for the last couple of weeks seems really healthy. Mario made a lot of money. Sure. These movies are making a lot of money. Project Hail Mary made a lot of money, and that was a very good movie as well. So, I mean, box office seems to be thriving right now, which is good.
The only... I do agree that's good, but the one thing that does kind of piss me off is, again, the theater that's near me is pretty small. So when there are like a couple of these like big blockbuster movies, that usually means that they might not get some of the smaller movies. Because like, I think like, it's like a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking like, maybe I've been hearing good things about that Faces of Death like remake. So maybe I'll go like check that out. And then, it wasn't at my theater, but then they had, like all these showings. It was like basically just like Project Hail Mary and Mario like back to back or whatever, which is like, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, see, Tim, I can't sympathise that much because you live in a place where I'm pretty sure there's about another 15 theatres that get weird little small films that I'll never get a chance to see in the theatre.
That's true. Yeah.
So, you're getting that much sympathy from me, Mr. I live near LA.
Yeah. No, I mean, I am very spoiled in that regard. I'll fully admit. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, as far as anything else goes, before we get to spoilers, because I think so much of this plot is something that you should go in not knowing much about. That I don't really want to say anything else. The only thing I'll say is the only other actor in here that I kind of recognize was the character of Jerry. I wasn't sure what I knew him from, but having seen his face now on IMDb, he was in that show Station 11. So I knew his voice from somewhere, and I'm like, where would I know him from? But that was it. No one else stuck out to me in terms of recognizing them from anywhere else, but they were all pretty solid, so no complaints. All right, Tim, would you like to say spoilers and get into the movie?
Oh, spoilers, don't you know?
I would like to apologise to any Irish people who happen to be listening to this particular episode on behalf of, as one person in the movie says, you dumb yank.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. All right. Spoilers then. For Hokum, you have been warned. Okay, so... I mean, we'll probably go through it in order for the most part, but I guess up front, this is a movie where it's been about trapped in a hotel when no one else is going to be there to see him, because it's like a weird part, it's the honeymoon suite, which is always locked up because the owner believes it's haunted by a witch. So the supernatural element is this possible witch coming to get him. But there's also the fact that he was trapped there by a human being who is just a regular monster, someone who has murdered someone, which, again, you don't necessarily see coming at the start of the movie. It's kind of a very sudden thing when you find out someone else has went missing. You're like, wait, what? What are we doing now? Mm-hmm. And then that kind of steamrolls into what the rest of the actual movie is. And that last 2/3 of the movie is, chef's kiss. Very good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I really love just like a good old fashioned, ghost story, urban legend, like folktale kind of thing. So obviously we have a little bit in the beginning, but then when he gets to the hotel and the old man is, telling these, creepy stories about the witch and everything, I was already getting excited. I was like, ooh, it sounds like they're setting up some really good stuff. And then I love the idea of there's just this one closed off section of the room. I mean, in a lot of ways I guess it's a little similar to The Shining or something. You have it doesn't start off with an empty hotel, but it gets to be off season later on, and then The Shining had the 1 room 217 or whatever.
237. Come on, Tim. Know your lore.
Well, 217's from the book, but
then Stephen King doesn't like the movie, so I'm going to say the real number.
Or I could be wrong, but
you could. Yeah,
I know they did change the number in the book and the movie, but again, just the idea though of having that forbidden room, and then of course as an audience member you just man, I kind of want to see him go to that room. He's gonna end up there at some point, and then again, yeah, just like a lot of really great payoff and everything. And yeah, it kind of reminded me of, some of the stuff we got like from Oddity. Like they had, like early on they would talk about like some of those like haunted objects and stuff, which actually was kind of funny because there's a couple of things that remind me of some of his other movies. Like they had the like little hotel bell from Oddity that they had the ghost story about, and then anytime they like rang the bell in this one, it reminded me of that in a way that I was like, oh, I wonder if like that's somehow gonna like tie it in like like at the end of the movie or something, like a ghost will inhabit that bell or something, like a secret origin story. But there's that, and then the at the skipping ahead to like the end of the movie when the people are like in those like shackles and stuff, kind of remind me of like Caveat. Like I mean, a very different kind of like chain or whatever, but still just like the idea of being like chained up like that reminded me of that. So I don't know if it's intentional, but I was like, oh, it's cool that it feels like it's in like maybe at least nodding to some of this stuff. And actually a real quick Easter egg, which I didn't catch, but my wife said she like saw online later. I guess I think it was like the author of that Irish folklore book was a character from Oddity. I don't know if it's like the main character or someone, but I guess there's like a little connective tissue there. So I was like, oh, that's fun.
Oh, okay. Interesting. He's building the McCarthy verse.
Yeah. Which like, I mean, at this point, we kind of roll our eyes when people talk about like shared universes or whatever, but I don't mind it when it's like one specific person's kind of thing.
I mean, I don't even think that's the thing here. The thing here is it's one little nod that most people will never even notice. It's not drawing attention to it in any way, shape, or form. So it's literally an Easter egg, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Easter eggs are fine.
Which I think is how these things like were kind of supposed to be at first, but then people just like, no, we want to see like the actual thing. Like we want to see the characters like getting lunch together or whatever. And it's like, all right, I guess we have to do that now.
I mean, honestly, if I have a critique of any kind, really, it's maybe just that they do a couple of spooky things at the start that I don't even know if you needed. Maybe McCarthy felt like, oh, I need to give them a spooky thing up front, so I'm going to have to do this moment where he's sitting at his laptop, he's writing away, and we do the whole, he hears a noise, and then the spooky face is behind him, and we find out later that this is his mum, seemingly, right? That's kind of haunting him, and it's maybe just representing that he's living with this guilt, and we'll get to what that is later. But and in hindsight, I'm like, I'd have been perfectly okay if nothing spooky happened until he was in the hotel, and like actually stuff related to what was going on in the hotel was the first spooky stuff that actually happened.
Yeah, it's especially weird because it doesn't really feel like that it comes into play later. Like obviously there's a lot of stuff to do with his mom later on and stuff, but yeah, like this particular scene that I feel like wasn't super needed. Also, I don't know if I have to see it again, because I remember like the kind of quick jump scare of like the woman behind him on his shoulder, like that was his mom. But then before that, it looked like he was like looking over at the stairs, and it looked like there was like a smaller like shadow, like a child ghost or something. Which,
well, I didn't catch that. Well, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I didn't see that.
I mean, unless it was just like that was supposed to be the mom in the distance, and it just like looked smaller to me than I thought or something. But I don't know, but maybe I have to rewatch it again. But I agree though. Like I don't think it was like poorly done. Like I thought it was executed fine. Yeah. But yeah, not needed.
It's well enough directed. It just like once you actually get into the rest of it, it feels like a more generic jump scare moment for the sake of like giving the audience a little fright up front, because it's going to be a little while before we've set up the bulk of the story. So
yeah. Can I guess since we're kind of talking about it, I want to jump to maybe like the one, it's not a big part, but the one like thing that kind of didn't work in the movie for me, or at least during the scene, which is when he has, I guess, that vision of like I thought it's supposed to be a rabbit, but I guess later on, I guess it was like a donkey, like cartoon character that's like on the TV, that's like talking to him. Like when you get that first like quick shot of him, it is like a very creepy looking, costume or makeup, whatever. So I thought that was effective, but once he starts like talking to him on the TV, I was like, I don't know if I'm really feeling this.
Oh,
like,
this is much later. Okay, yeah, I thought you were going to be talking about something up like early in the movie.
No, sorry.
Yeah, much later. Yeah,
but yeah, I kind of wasn't crazy about that scene because it feels like so many of the spooky stuff was kind of restrained, and so it felt weird to me, like just having a very like this blunt in your face, like, oh no, here's this character and he's talking to you and he's being like a little goofy and whatever. So yeah, I kind of didn't really care for it that much during the scene, but then I felt like it gets justified a little bit, or when we get to the end of the movie and you kind of, I will have a deeper discussion about this, but when you find out that he's been drugged for most of the time, I guess, so I guess you can kind of justify it as being like, okay, this is probably just like a not actually happening, or something in his mind, or whatever, which if you think of it like that, I think it's a bit more palatable to me, instead of like, okay, now we just have kind of like jokey goofy ghosts in this movie now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't take it quite in that same way, because I think in that moment you were saying that once or twice you were reminded of Silent Hill. This to me was a very Silent Hill moment, because I think it was very clear that this is a monstrous version of a character he watched as a kid, because we saw the kid version wearing the t-shirt with this character on it and stuff like that, and this is what he was watching when the big traumatic thing in his past happened. This is what was distracting him. So for me, this felt more like his like inner psyche. This was more like he's in Silent Hill and he's been tormented by this like representation of his own like guilt, kind of thing. So it's definitely more in your face for sure. And you could maybe argue that it goes maybe further than like tonally than what other stuff in the movie's doing. I think it worked well enough for me in the moment, because I was getting a very specific vibe from it, as opposed to, oh, this is going to be like a jokey, like recurring thing that's going to keep coming up now.
Right. Yeah. And to be fair, like I didn't hate it or anything. It's just like, for a movie where I'm pretty much loving everything, that was like one teeny tiny part that I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm like crazy about this as much. But
yeah. What's funny, the first time you get a glimpse of that character, there's like a jump scare where it's like he kind of wakes up and he's there. I thought that was actually a tease of something else, because when you find the dead body and it's in a costume with the ears, I thought that was like a tease of that, as opposed to something hinting at his past. So it's kind of interesting. It ended up being more about his past than it was the tease of like what he was about to find sometime later.
Yeah. And it was kind of interesting because, again, I said like I really didn't know much going into this movie, but I had seen like a still or a screenshot of that character, because I feel like anytime there was like an article or preview or review about it, I feel like they always use that as the like headline photo or whatever. The header image. So anyway, to go back to the sort of the setup here. So the opening of the movie is like in a desert, and it's following this like guy who's got a treasure map, and there's a kid traveling with him. And what it turns out to be, all this though, is that this is actually the book that Adam Scott's character Ohm is writing. He's writing a conclusion to his fantasy series or adventure series, whatever that he's been writing. And he's struggling with the ending, and then he has a creepy moment where he hears something in the dark. But the main thing is that he starts looking at his the urns that his mum and dad's ashes are in, and he's looking through some other old stuff. There's also a moment here where he like finds a lockbox, and he doesn't know what's inside it, so he like sort of like chisels it off. He's got like a little saw thing. He takes the padlock off, and there's a gun inside. And in the initial moment, it kind of felt like, oh, he didn't know his parents had a gun. I also thought his parents maybe had just died recently in this opening scene. That's not the case at all. Obviously, the importance of this gun is actually something very different that comes up way later. But it's funny though, because when it cuts to like Ireland and he's like driving to the hotel, and I'm like, oh, they set up a gun, but
he couldn't have brought a gun to Ireland. He can't just go into a plane with a gun. Like, how the hell is this gun going to show up again? But then it became more about, okay, why that gun was important in his past than anything else. So, but that's just kind of the initial setup to get him to go to Ireland, and he's there to the hotel that his parents spent time at for their honeymoon. He's going to scatter their ashes, maybe find out a little bit about them. But the big things that are set up here early on in the movie is that he's kind of a dick, right? He has no time to like mingle with fans because some people recognize his name and like, oh, you're the writer. Can I, get you to sign something for my son? He likes your books. And he's like, nah. And so that's it. He just walks up. So, he's very disgruntled. He's a very, the arc of this movie, of course, is that he is effectively very depressed. He's got a drinking problem, just like his father. He does try and kill himself. That's that's kind of the turning point of the movie, actually, is when that happens after about 20-25 minutes, where it starts to like then go into where it's going to actually be for the rest of the movie. But yeah.
I'll say one thing I do like about his character is, yes, he's obviously like very much a dick, but and this is something like I was talking about with my wife, and she had like a good point where it's like he's like a dick, but like a lot of the big thing is when he's like mean to Albie, like that's kind of like shitty, but a lot of the times he's being.
Albie's the bellboy in the hotel, who is an aspiring writer, and when he says he's a writer, Adam Scott starts saying things like, oh, so is this a costume you're wearing of a bellboy then? And starts belittling him for it.
Yeah, so like that was pretty mean, but like before that though, I feel like a lot of the times when he's being a dick, it's usually to like other asshole people. Like when he first meets Fergal outside, after he like had shot a goat, he's kind of like, like grilling him like, do you really have to shoot him? Like, can't you just like, do this or that? Like, he's kind of like being like, yeah, why are you killing this animal and stuff? And then later on when he sees this part again, I thought it was really funny. The owner of the hotel is just like sitting there telling these two random kids like this pretty like scary and inappropriate story. And then Adam Scott's just like, hey, are those your kids? And he's like, no. He's like then stop talking to him. Like, kids, go find your parents. Don't talk to this guy. Like, I like that he's a dick, but in like a likable way where it's like, oh, okay, he's like, you can tell that he does have a sense of like when stuff is like right or wrong. And then, also you see him being nice to like Jerry and, like the Fiona and stuff. Like, so he's not like, definitely an asshole, which ends up kind of being like an arc for him throughout the movie. But I think it's in a like interesting, fun way to watch.
He's not completely irredeemable, as what you're saying. Yeah. Just to clarify, the goat was shot with a crossbow, not a gun. Just to be clear.
Sure.
Because you said shot, and people will probably just assume you mean gun. So. Yeah, he checks in, he finds this tree that there was a photo of his mum standing next to. There's a nice detail here where he sort of like gently scatters one of the ashes, and then the second one he just dumps out. It is like, okay, he liked one parent more than the other based on how he did that. But it's out there where he meets Jerry, who's kind of this like homeless guy who lives in the woods and is a bit crazy, and he's taking mushrooms all the time, and he's talking about seeing ghosts and stuff, and he's kind of this kind of likable oddball type character, but he doesn't like speak to Ohm the way that everyone else does, so he kind of responds to him a bit better. And then the other character that's kind of nice to him is Fiona, who works in the hotel, and obviously you're sort of seeing them talk to each other, like, oh, is this going to be a flirtation? Is it going to be like a romance or something here? But she's just kind of like letting him speak, doesn't necessarily judge him for any of the shitty things he says. Listens to what he's saying, but notably when he starts talking about the book he's writing and he describes the ending, like how this story of the man and the boy who are searching for this treasure in the desert is going to end, he describes this very bleak ending where the man kills the boy trying to break the treasure bottle over the boy's head, and Fiona's like, that's a bleak as anything ending. I don't want to read that. Like, I'm going to stay away from that. So again, further setting up the character stuff is that, yeah, he's in a very negative mental space, and like everything about him is like going down a very bleak path. So,
yeah. I did think that was funny. Yeah, like she just is very literal, like why would you want to write that? And then which I feel like that's like a thought I've had lately, where maybe I've just been a bit too like depressed or something, where like whenever I start to go watch something that's like really depressing or bleak, I'm just kind of like, why did the person make this? Like, I don't want to watch this.
Well, there's usually a point to it, which is like not really the argument he makes. He just says it's supposed to be challenging, but yeah, there's supposed to be like a point to it. Here though, like if you want to analyze it a little bit, I think, you know, once we find out that he accidentally shot his mum when he was a kid because he was playing with his dad's gun, I think this idea of like his character killing the child is like almost him trying to punish his child self for what he did, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this is also the scene where when she leaves for a minute, Albie, the bellboy, comes in and starts to try and like make small talk with him, and Adam Scott is just a dick to him, like criticizes him for not reading the room and leaving him alone. And I do think there's something interesting though, that it's after he's very cruel to Albie and even burns his hand with the spoon that he holds over the candle to make a point and get rid of him. This is like what leads to his suicide attempt, right? This is like, you know, the next time, you know, once he leaves the scene, his stuff's been, like, his tape recorder has been left behind in the bar, and Fiona's like, oh, we need to take that up to him. She asks Albie to open his door, and he's not supposed to because it's got a do not disturb sign on it, but she's like, no, I've got a bad feeling, open the door. And when they go in, they find him, you know, hanging from the ceiling, and there's a bit of a time jump, you know, he wakes up in the hospital and all that. But I do think it's interesting that his like depression arguably gets at its worst after he's been awful to someone. So I'm not saying he directly consciously felt guilty about it necessarily, but just this idea of like he's in this really negative space, and that's kind of like, you know, the last thing that maybe propelled him to make this choice.
Sure. And then yeah, it's very interesting because, like, you know, this whole excuse me, yeah, like this whole thing with him, like, you know, trying to take his life and stuff, like, it gets a little dark, and like, again, in another movie I might be like, I don't know if this is like necessary or whatever, but again, it's just like, you know, I feel like it sets this stuff up so well, because you know, I feel like you wouldn't really have much of a reason for this character to, you know, like, want to be like exploring the hotel like off season or trying to find, you know, this missing person that he like talked to once before. But like, yeah, just the fact that like, oh, like, you know, we know he's a dick, but like, you know, he clearly was nice enough to her, and then it would make sense that like, oh, you know, he really wants to talk to her because, you know, she saved his life, and, you know, like it's enough motivation where it feels like, you know, that he's justified in doing the things he's doing, like trying to find her and going back and like investigating and stuff. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, weird that he would be doing this, you know?
Well, yeah, but it takes a little bit to even get to that. Everything that comes next is all very just logical. It's like, oh, he goes back to the hotel because the hotel has his stuff, you know? So it's like, oh, where's my stuff? And it's when he's there that the concierge character, was it Mal? He kind of explains, oh yeah, Fiona's been missing for weeks, you know, because I think when he was there, the night he tried to kill himself, that was the day before the Halloween party, and she's been missing since the Halloween party. It's been a few weeks, and you know, he gets concerned, and you know, this idea of him feeling a drive to try and want to help and find her. It's not just that, you know, she was nice to him. It's not just that he kind of liked her or whatever, but there is this idea that she saved his life and now she's in trouble. There's like there's a more sort of, I don't know if primal's the right word, but there's a very kind of like, even because I think in any other situation, right, if she was just nice to him a little bit and then nothing else happened and then she disappeared, it would probably still be a bit of a stretch that he would be willing to like stick around beyond when he was supposed to be here to even look into it or care. But because of how things played out, because her having this feeling of going into the room and finding him like that, leading to his life being saved, and because he wasn't even necessarily the nicest back to her, like he wasn't a dick to her in the same way that he was to Albie, but it's not like he was like friendly and charming and crack jokes or anything. He was still kind of dour and all the rest of it. But this person gave a shit about him, right? And he's a person who, by all accounts, doesn't have a lot of people who give a shit about him. That's the point that's made throughout the movie. So the motivation for him to want to try and help, even though it's not like as soon as he hears it, he's like, okay, I've got a mission now. No, it's not. It's kind of like he's just asked a few questions and doesn't get necessarily any compelling or good answers. He doesn't really sound satisfied when Mal suggests, oh yeah, the police are looking for that Jerry who's out in the woods because, his wife mysteriously died years ago and he was last seen speaking to her. So it kind of sets up this idea that people think Jerry's behind her disappearance. And obviously we get into more details later as to what's actually happened, but that's like this kind of breadcrumb where he's like, nah, that's not the one person who I kind of liked actually before today, so that doesn't quite add up for me. So there's just all these little compelling breadcrumbs that make him want to look into things more. And then the big thing that comes up, and this is something that was set up before as well, this was separate from all the character stuff, is that the honeymoon suite in the hotel is just always locked. It's blocked off. They don't let anyone in there. The boss is super strict about it because he believes it's haunted by a witch. And there's a couple of lines about it here or there in the first half hour. But he suggests to Mal, hey, what about the honeymoon suite? Has anyone looked there? And he's like, it's always locked. It's physically impossible for her to be in there. But of course, as soon as he says it, as soon as he makes that suggestion, you're like, it's got something to do with that honeymoon suite.
Yeah.
You absolutely know. Either she's sitting in there dead or there's something mystical's happening in there or whatever. And obviously, when it turns out that Mal's the one behind all this, that he's the human villain, he's the one who has killed her, he's the one who's put her somewhere, all of this has a bit of a hindsight context added to it where you realise that he's trying to steer him away from it. But it's very convincing in the scene though, because all of the things that he's saying do make sense. It was like, that place is always locked, no one's allowed in there. In theory, that sounds reasonable. In theory, that sounds like, yeah, of course it is, but you should still probably check just in case. But it does set up this idea of this location in the hotel that because no one ever goes in there and no one's allowed to be in there, it does make it the perfect place to hide something bad or to, do something that you don't want anyone else to find. So all these compelling reasons just make sense and build this natural mystery. And especially when, Madam Scott goes outside and he runs into Jerry, and Jerry, because he's looking for Jerry, finds his van that he lives out of, and he finds the book that Fiona had about folklore, and he starts asking Jerry questions like, hey, did you see her? You've got our book. And he's like, yeah, she was my friend. She loaned me the book because I asked for it. And I think it's got something to do with that room. So Jerry immediately starts suggesting things that Adam Scott was already suggesting to the other guy. So immediately it's like, oh, I've got a reason to want to try and work with Jerry because he seems to have the same ideas I have about, he wants to look into the same things. He's got the same notions that I do that maybe will lead to a clue or lead to some way of helping her. And yeah, he feels compelled to help her because, yeah, she was there for him when no one else was.
Yeah, and Jerry specifically says that he had a ghost vision of her.
Yes.
Because he breaks into the hotel to steal leftover medicine from people, and then he basically looks at the check-in desk or whatever, and there's a bell for the honeymoon suite where you can ring it up there. And he just had a vision of her ghost pointing at the bell, and then the bell ringing. And I forget if he mentions it here or if he mentioned it before, but I think maybe it's here. He mentioned Adam Scott's oh, well, are you sure you weren't taking some of your mushrooms when you saw that? And he's like, well, yeah, but when you do that, that opens your brain and makes you be able to open your mind to ghosts and otherworldly things, which is obviously an important part later in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, he suggests that, of course, and Adam Scott doesn't even react to it. He doesn't roll his eyes or anything. But it's obviously left in a place where it's yeah, or that's just an excuse for why you're seeing a bunch of weird shit when you're on mushrooms. But yeah, so it's they have this kind of mission, and Jerry's yeah, we have to wait until dark to go back in and maybe search that room. And he reveals that he's stolen the key, right? The one key for this room, the honeymoon suite. Jerry's got his hands on it. So it's okay, we're going to wait until everyone's left the hotel and we're going to go check it out. And this is where it kind of feels oh, we have a goal. we have a character who is likable, who has now went missing and we care about. And I also want to point out as well, because I don't think I made this clear when we went through this plot beat, is that her being missing is such a weird surprise, because nothing hints at that she's going to go missing. It doesn't hint that there's any like malice before that point, and it is just like, you know, Adam Scott goes back to the hotel to get his stuff, and it just comes up because he's like, hey, is Fiona around? I'd kind of like to, like, you know, maybe thank her or something. And then it just comes out of nowhere. Oh, she's been missing for weeks. And it's like, wait, what? It's a like, you know, again, I don't know what was revealed in the trailer, but going in cold, that came out of nowhere so much. Where you're like, wait, what? And I think it had the effect of feeling like, you know, I think, you know, obviously movies, when a character's in trouble or a character goes missing, the movie wants you to care about them, right? That's just something that happens, or it's what they want you to feel anyway. But I think there is something really simply effective about this idea of like, yeah, the one person he wants to speak to because she did something genuinely like important, something genuinely special in saving his life, only to find out that admittedly doesn't know she's dead immediately, but like this just feeling of like, oh, I may not get to do that ever. Like I can't accept that. Like, one, it further adds to the motivation of wanting to try and help find her, but also just like, I think it does a really good job of making the audience feel like it hits you like a gut punch out of nowhere of like, wait, what? She's in trouble? Like, why? So it's almost like by robbing you of like teasing like she's going to be in trouble, it feels more kind of like, maybe shocking's not the right word, 'cause it's not like a huge shock in the moment, but it's like, wait, what? What's happening? So it's the sort of thing that in lesser hands might feel weird. But because the movie then just makes the whole movie about finding her, because that's the whole movie turns into that mission, at least for a while, right? Until she is found dead, and then it maybe evolves beyond that. But like, that is the goal of the character for the next like chunk of the movie. So it feels like it's not just glossed away over or put under a rug or anything. It's like, no, this is the driving force of what we're doing next. And you feel like she in some level deserves that, because she saved his life, and it feels like, I don't know, it feels earned in a way that I think is just really good script writing to me.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I think it was really fun, never really knowing like what was gonna happen in the movie. Like when he first shows up at the hotel, I kind of just assumed like, all right, he's a writer at this like creepy hotel with like a ghost story. So okay, he's probably like, you know, in a easier version of this movie, like, you know, you would just be like, all right, he's a writer who's looking for like motivation for his horror book he's writing, so he wants to, you know, stay in this haunted hotel or something. But like, that's not it at all. Like, instead, they do a really good job of, you know, like setting all these things up. And then like I was pretty shocked when you know, they open the door to find him like trying to hang himself, or I guess, you know, succeeding in hanging himself, and everything. And then yeah, like cutting to like a hospital, like, you know, 2 weeks later or whatever. Whereas like, oh, wait a minute, like, this is a horror movie and we're just skipping right over Halloween. Like, I assumed like this would all be like, you know, something crazy happened on Halloween night. And then then it's like, oh, okay, it's becoming about this like search for this missing character. But like you said, it's like all really well done, and it's just great the way it's like set up. And then it just kind of becomes this driving catalyst, you know, for the rest of the movie. I don't know, like I'm saying it over and over again, but I'm just really impressed by, you know, the way he just sets things up, and it just feels like, yeah, you don't know where it's going at first, but then once you realize what he's doing, it's like, oh, he's just perfectly setting this stuff up. And it really like engrosses you in the characters and the situation. And I don't think there's like ever like, you know, an instance where I was like bored or whatever. Like, it's a very well paced and like, you know, exciting movie. It really moves, you know.
The thing is that once you get to the setup, right, and he's talking to Jerry, and they're like plotting to go in together to search the honeymoon suite because they think there might be something there, and Jerry especially thinks it because he had this ghostly vision, is that by this point in the movie, you've got this unlikely weird kooky ally in Jerry. You've got this kind of concierge character who's given a lot of exposition. You've got Fergal, who, on his way out of the hotel before he meets Jerry, kind of has a bit of a rough conversation with Adam Scott, where he kind of gets a little bit angry and... Because Adam Scott's basically asking questions about the investigation and even says at one point, oh, have the police talked to you? And he gets kind of like defensive and tells him to leave while he still looks like his passport photo. So Fergal almost is like the big red herring because he seems like an angry dude.
I was just going to say.
Right?
Yeah.
So like... it sets up him, and it sets up, you've got Albie as well, who's this kind of innocent young bellboy. I mean, he's not even that young, but you know, he feels more naive than the other characters. So you've got all these characters set up, and then you've got the character who's missing. But you've got this like wide swath of characters who are like potentially all suspects. Like if we assume one of them did something to Fiona, then we've got like 4 suspects that are potentially the problem. We've got the unlikely ally in Jerry who wants to help, and it's kind of fun having the misfit be the one who's like got the best idea, at least the one that Adam Scott agrees with and wants to explore. It just makes them feel like an unlikely duo. So there's just like a fun element to the setup here before you even get to any of the other stuff that happens. And then once you get into the hotel and they're snooping around and it's creepy and whatnot, ultimately, Jerry gets like taken out because Fergal shows up and like grabs him, but Adam Scott, doesn't get noticed. So Adam Scott sticks around and ends up, going up to the honeymoon suite on his own. And this is kind of the important like setup of the movie, because when he's in there, he does have his creepy moment where he kind of falls asleep a little bit drunk and he sees the creepy like rabbit head or donkey man head thing. Right? Hard to describe, but the movie really kicks into high gear though when Mal shows up, right? And apparently he's there because the owner of the hotel has freaked out because he's realized his key for the honeymoon suite is missing. And he's like, here to check on what's going on. He's here to try and find it for him. And he's like, hey, you have to get out of here. And he's been friendly enough, all things considered, right? He's like, hey, you shouldn't be here. I could get into trouble. Let's just leave. But Adam Scott's like sort of theorizing and saying, what about this? What about that? And it's when he goes over to the elevator, this little, the dumb waiter thing that goes down to the basement area. Now, the basement, we also find out here, was walled up when the hotel was renovated some years ago, so there's no way out of that basement. It's been just completely sealed off, but this elevator still goes down to it. He goes to press the button and Mal's hand comes in and grabs it, and he's like, look, we shouldn't be here, we have to go. And it's like, he really doesn't want him to press that button, and it's kind of wild. And once he actually does press the button, or maybe it's just before, I can't remember exactly when it cuts to it, but it cuts to kind of the flashback of what happened to Fiona. And it's like you see the whole thing play out, and you see that Fiona's in this like bunny costume on Halloween, and she looks kind of sad because she's worried about Adam Scott's character in the hospital. But the movie like kind of like focuses on this like the tea she's drinking, and Mal specifically said, finish up that tea before it gets cold. And then you find out that Mal takes her up to the honeymoon suite when she's kind of like drugged on this, whatever he spiked her with, takes her up to the honeymoon suite, and he actually just puts her in this elevator and sends her down to the basement where she's got no way of getting back up. And she's presumably starved to death down there. And that's kind of like what we find out has happened. And there's some context for it we find out because she happened to have on her, Adam Scott's tape recorder that he has for notes. And she recorded a couple of messages before she died, which we get to hear, which reveals that Mal got her pregnant, but he's married and was scared that his wife would find out, or scared that his father-in-law, who's the owner of the hotel, would find out and crucify him for it. So he's elected to murder her because she refused to give up the child, and that's why he's killing her. So there's a whole it's not too much, but it's just enough that you completely make sense and you get it.
Yeah, I thought this was all pretty interesting stuff. I did kind of get the feeling that she wasn't taken by supernatural forces, that there was going to be a human element to this, but I wasn't thinking it was Mal at first, like you were saying before, Fergal kind of being a red herring, but he was so vicious and over the top that I was like, oh, okay, maybe he did something.
Oh yeah, were you thinking then, maybe before we find out, because before we could hear the tape recording, I was thinking, oh, was he sacrificing her to something?
I I thought that might be an element that like maybe he like if he's like the like does the dirty work for like the hotel owner or something, that he needs like sacrifices every so often or whatever for who he thinks whether it's a literal witch or like they just think that there's a witch there or whatever. Like I thought that there could be an element for that, and again, I like that maybe that's more of the obvious take, but then he kind of swerves.
He's just a weasel. He's just a weasel who's covering his own tracks. That's all he is.
Yeah. But then, like, obviously, like, it's still like a horror movie and stuff. So that the fact that, he's doing this, but then also it does, like, still get embroiled in, like, all this kind of weird supernatural stuff. And it all ends up, like, coming together very nicely, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because the whole thing is that once, like, that elevator's coming up, Mal basically quickly just kind of hits him and runs for it and locks him in, right? He gets the key and locks him in. So the setup of the movie now is that Adam Scott is now trapped in the honeymoon suite and there's no way out. And we also know there's supposedly haunting by a witch going on in here as well, so that might be a concern. But he sees this dead body of Fiona in this elevator, and this is kind of what I was getting at with this sense of like geography, is that okay, so we kind of get really familiar with this honeymoon suite and the two different sort of rooms that make up the suite, and we get this sense of where the bed is and all the rest of it. But we also have this element of this elevator that could be taken down to this creepy basement where who knows what's down there, right? But you can get back up from there. And this actually leads to one of the big bits of problem solving, is after he tries to get out some other ways, because obviously he tries to do some more obvious things first, like, unscrew something, but some of the screws need an actual screwdriver and not just a flathead. So he's like, shit, I can't use the knife anymore. He basically has to use this mechanical clock that whenever it strikes on the hour, the little like man on top like spins around and hits a bell. And he basically rigs this so that the little like bat that the little toy's holding swings around and hits the elevator button, because the button downstairs in the basement does not work. You cannot get back up from down there. Fiona says that in one of the recordings. But you can press it up here and it'll come back up. So he basically rigs this little thing to spin around and hit the button. And it's like, oh, this is so good, because he's going exploring, he's trying to find a way out, and it's just, yeah. Like that, this is like problem solving. You've set up the space, you've set up the very kind of flimsy solution, because it's a good solution, but it's also flimsy. Like if anything knocks this toy out of the way, or anything, that's it. He's trapped down there.
It could just like stop working. Who knows how long the batteries or whatever
sure.
That's inside it. Like, but no, I agree. I love all this stuff so much. Just like all these mechanics of let's explore the place, let's look for possible exits, let's find tools and items that we can use, and then like I guess when you explain it, like it might not sound that interesting, but like when you're watching the movie, it's just like riveting. It's like, oh man, how's he gonna get out of this? And then at the same time, like at the same time, the room itself is really creepy, and they use like sound and stuff really effectively here. Like I feel like sometimes like you might hear like like the wind howling, or like or just kind of like kind of bathe in the silence for a bit, and it does feel legitimately creepy. Or like they'll do like the close-ups on like the little cupid heads or something. It's just, again, he's just does such a good job of creating atmosphere and space. And
that little toy that spins around on the clock's this little cupid, like you said, but he's got such a shitting grin on it that whenever it cuts to a close-up, it looks like it's like taunting him. It's really effective.
Which it becomes really funny when like we're gonna get there soon, but let's just say like when it really needs to come into play and it's kind of taking a while, and then they're cutting to that face. It's like such like a shitty grin. Like it was actually kind of funny.
No, what I was going to say is that the so much of this plays out. There's like large chunks of the movie with no one talking because he's on his own. So it's very, very, very light on dialogue, and it's very much just the visual storytelling, which also makes it even more compelling. So you get to just see him problem solve and see the thought process and see what he's looking for and see how he's... And you're like, what's he doing with the clock? Oh, he's trying to get it to hit the button. All right, that makes some sense. It's a fun idea, and he goes exploring down in the basement, which is where we get kind of probably our first big creepy, like, super horror movie sequence, I would say. Not that it's not been a horror movie, because it absolutely has. There's a lot of creepy going around in the dark and noises and stuff, but this scene down in the basement with like the face coming out of the darkness like towards him as he's trying to get back up in the elevator is very, very effective.
Absolutely, yeah. And then real quick too, I just want to say, like, again, like another mechanical thing is, I really like you already mentioned it, but the tape recorder, how like whenever it needs to have like important information relayed, like it'll just turn on, and you'll start hearing like what she's talking about, or whatever. Because like I think he's about to go into the basement, and then that's like when it turns on, and she's like, I'm stuck in the basement. Like the button down there doesn't work. Again, like that's just like a nice mechanic of being like, oh, all right, we got another problem. Like we can't just go down there right away. Let's solve this first.
Yeah. So he goes down and he's looking around, and there's like these shackles like hanging from like the ceiling at one point. But like the guy said, like Mal said, he wasn't lying when he said this was walled off. There is just like but he does find chalk, which is very important. Because the folklore book earlier on, when he was looking at it, the one page he focused on, and like Fiona kind of brought up, is that, hey, yeah, like if you're ever getting chased by a witch, you surround yourself in a circle of chalk, and you'll be safe. And he just makes a joke at like, if I'm ever being surrounded by or being chased by a witch, I'll seek out a therapist, not chalk. But obviously he ends up with chalk, and it's going to become important. But yeah, like. This sequence where he hears some noises, we hear some chains rattling, and the female sort of like moan from the distance, and he runs back to the elevator. He's trying to like get back up, and it's just like it's taking its time, like you said, like the clock's just not going when it's supposed to. But you sort of hear the noise coming closer, and sure enough, just before he starts going up, you see just like the vaguest like image of a face coming out of the darkness. It's just the perfect horror movie image. So good. Yeah. And it eventually gets chased up, when he gets back up to the room. This witch can come up here, so he does draw a circle of chalk around the bed and is sort of protected inside the circle, but she's like out, and this is like an old school bed that has like a curtain like around the posts, so you can just sort of see like her through the curtain, like sort of walking around the bed, and it's it's super creepy. And it's at this point I'm like, oh, this is super interesting, and I love that they're nailing the creepiness of the supernatural part, but we still have this shithead human being character to potentially deal with. Yeah. And through all of this, we've been occasionally cutting to Jerry, who's like locked up in the back of the van with Fergal, and he jumps out at one point to try and like get out, and we don't see him for a while. And it's actually because around here Adam Scott does fall asleep, right? He does actually go to sleep in the bed despite the fact there's a witch stalking around this circle of chalk. And basically in the morning, Mal comes back to the hotel, presumably to like sort of survey the damage, see what's going on and whatnot, and he finds a bunch of blood in the lobby, and it's because Jerry's stumbled his way back after jumping out of a moving vehicle. And he's pretty banged up.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking like, okay, Jerry jumps out of the van, and I was like, okay, so presumably we have him now coming to save the day. But also I was like, it feels like Fergal must have been driving for a long time. Like, how is he gonna get back like on foot, in time before anything happens? But it makes sense, like when it's like, oh, okay, no, he falls asleep, so it's like the next day, so a lot of time has passed.
It took until morning. It's not like a quick thing by any stretch. And
then real quick too, I just want to say like the scene of the witch coming up, the dumbwaiter elevator, whatever, shaft, like that really like took me by surprise, because like I'm kind of thinking like, almost like video game logic or whatever. It's like, okay, we had our scary encounter, but we're back in like, the room that's kind of like the safe house or whatever. So like we should be good. And then it just feels like such like a big like middle finger, like where he's just like looking down, and then it's like, oh, she can climb up here, like, oh god damn. But then again, we have like the chalk item can come into play. And then one thing I thought was interesting is, like when he first goes into the basement, he sees all these like little items hanging from the ceiling. Like one was like a little kind of wooden figurine that like Fiona had. But I mean, to me that seems like, okay, I guess when the witch takes you, like it leaves an item there, which then presumably that this must have happened to like a lot of people, because there is a decent number of things there. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. And
I mean, I assume it's some of these are for a long time ago, though. I don't know if she's had a lot of victims recently. Like Fiona might have been the first one she had in a while. It was my guess.
Although, I mean, this is something I'm not really. I guess something we can discuss here, though. But like, would you say like Fiona was a victim of the witch, though? Because I mean, her body is still like intact and in the the dumbwaiter. So presumably, it doesn't seem like the witch took her, or at least it doesn't do the same thing that it does to Mal later on.
I mean, I suppose there's a debate to be had there. I have to assume, like, I think as soon as she said, because you hear Fiona on the recorder say there's something else down here, I just kind of assumed, well, okay, so it wasn't weeks of starvation that killed her, probably like 3 days of not drinking water, to be honest, is probably what did it, but but it probably wasn't that actually killed her. It was probably this thing. I was kind of like taking like obviously you see what happens to Mal later, right? But like I kind of took that as more representative rather than I think Fiona probably did get dragged into that like demonic portal to hell. All right, again, we're jumping ahead here, but like it doesn't actually take the physical body. The physical body still stays behind, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Would be my assumption, right? So, which is a bit sad because it means that she met a very gnarly end. But I can't imagine how she, unless she found the chalk and just sort of stayed protected in the chalk until she died of thirst.
Yeah, I mean, which. I mean, I don't know if it would count, but like, I mean, the one thing I thought Adam Scott was going to do if the, dumbwaiter didn't start going back up is if he just sit in there and then draw kind of like the chalk on the outside. I guess that's not like a full circle, but I don't know if that'd be like enough for her to cross. But I mean, potentially.
I don't know. That's like a weird technicality I don't think anyone can answer.
But I mean, I guess the two things that come to mind is, yes, she had the chalk, so maybe that, and she has that knowledge of folklore, so maybe there was something she could do to kind of ward it off, but then didn't really have anywhere to go, so she stays in the dumbwaiter. But then the other thing I wasn't sure of is like maybe it only goes after men, because like one of the things the owner's talking about at the start of the movie is he's like, saying that like it likes to take pieces of you, whatever, and he says like it's particularly fond of like something that you miss, which I assume means that like, it likes to take cocks, like it wants to take like men's penises or whatever. So I don't know if that means that it's maybe more fond of men than it doesn't go after women as much or something.
Yeah, to specify what you were saying there is when he's talking to two young boys, he says, "Oh, the witch will take something that you'll miss more than your eye," I think is what he says. So that the implication, yes, is the penis. I don't know. I didn't really think about it too hard. I wasn't.
It's not important.
Yeah, I wasn't all that concerned with it. It was like to me, it made enough sense where I was kind of going for it. Because at this point, I was just too excited about the idea of like, oh, how's he going to get saved? Because when Adam Scott wakes up and he looks out the little like sort of like opening that you can see outside from upstairs, he's like, oh, there's a car here. Oh, Jerry might be here, and sure enough, the plot device that was set up is that this old room's so old that it still has like an old mechanical bell that you can pull. You can press the button on or pull the button out, this little cord, and it'll ring the bell down the lobby. And we know Jerry's down there, so that will alert Jerry that someone is up there. And even if he doesn't necessarily think it's a real person yet, if maybe he just thinks it's something spooky, either way it will get his attention and maybe will lead to him being found. But of course, he's trying to ring this bell, but Jerry's like outside because Mal's trying to get rid of him or whatever. And then the cord breaks, but Adam Scott's like, "Oh no, I'm not having this," and he just sort of starts ripping the wall open to like find the extra bit of the cord so he can pull on it from a more direct part of it. And sure enough, eventually Jerry like does hear the bell go off, but Mal of course is like. Because Mal hears the bell, because Jerry goes outside and then the bell starts ringing and Mal's like, "Oh shit, he's up there," and he's trying to alert people, and he's like getting kind of worried, and it's a whole thing. And ultimately, like, yeah, when the scuffle happens and like, because Mal basically starts like blabbering to Jerry. He's like, "Oh, you have to understand, like Fiona was a nasty person," and I'm like, he doesn't even know you did something to her yet, Mal, and you're just kind of spilling your guts because you know you're about to be found out. But it all comes to a head though when Jerry does get the key, does go up to try and open things up. But when they go, because actually when you go in we didn't really mention this, but when you go in through the locked gate to get to the honeymoon suite, the door's actually an elevator that goes up to the honeymoon suite. So when they come out of that elevator, Jerry shouts on Adam Scott's character, and very quickly Mal just kills Jerry with the crossbow. He's went and gotten the crossbow out of the container,
and it's a little bit of a darkly funny line because Adam Scott, Jerry's so beat up from jumping out of the car and stuff, and so Adam Scott's like Jesus, what happened to you? And Jerry's like, I'll live. And then as soon as he says that, like arrow to the head.
Yeah. And then Mal, in such a rush to sort of like skedaddle away, doesn't realize that he's left. He didn't grab the key off a Jerry. Jerry's body. So, but of course, by the time he goes back up, Adam Scott's already got to his body and taken the key. So now, and this is where you start to sort of like, I think, really predict where it's going. You're like, oh shit, we're going to get the payoff to this witch is that Mal's going to be the one who actually gets got, and that's going to be the fun part. And again, it's going to be Adam Scott using the weird resources that he's got. The fact that one of those resources is like the witch that's down there is kind of weird, but it's like, okay, that's what we're doing now. And yeah, sure enough, when he realizes that, oh shit, the key's still up there, Mal starts a fire, right? He's intended on burning down the hotel to completely cover his tracks, but he still wants to go up and get the key and maybe finish off Adam Scott. So he goes up with a crossbow, and Adam Scott, sneaks back into the honeymoon suite and goes down the elevator, and Mal decides to ultimately, he's like, "Hey, come back up. There's no way out of here. The place is on fire. Come up and we'll both live." But then he sort of like gives in and goes down the elevator, trying to hunt Adam Scott. So once we're down there, though, the funny thing is if the witch gets you, you basically just magically get shackles put on you, and you're just kind of chained up. And this is where we see like Mal, once he's chained up, he's just sort of led into this door at the end of the hallway, and it looks like there's, I don't know, like demon children all waiting to like consume his soul or whatever's going on.
Yeah. Like we saw those doors earlier, and it seemed like there was something like creepy beyond them, but yeah, we didn't really have like any clue. And then I like the Adam Scott first gets down there and he kind of reaches a point, and then like he hurriedly starts to draw like a chalk circle, and it's like just right before he's finished, the witch pops up, and then
big jump scare.
And I guess since I guess she was able to get to him like right before he finished. I'm guessing that's why he got shackled too.
Yeah.
But then it is kind of funny. Like when Mal is shackled, he like goes up to Adam Scott and he is kind of just talking to him like none of this stuff just happened. He's just like, "Hey, so what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get out of this? Like, what's the plan here?" And then he just quickly gets dragged into.
Mal is such an easy like character to just like hate and just be like so sad, like glad that he's getting his comeuppance. It's so fun. And of course Adam Scott gets out of the shackles because he still has that little like saw that he had to like break through the padlock earlier on him. and he cuts through that with that, and then he makes a run for it, goes back up the elevator, and by the time he gets up there, there's fire and stuff. Also, he kind of gets like a motivational moment from like his mother's ghost, and again, is it actually her ghost, or is it just like in his head? Like, because I guess that's the one relevant thing about the start of the movie, when like the mother's ghost is kind of there haunting him, is that it's the idea that he's still been haunted by this girl. And he does a whole thing here where he breaks down and says it was, it was just an accident, I'm sorry, it was an accident. And the mother's ghost is like, yeah, I know. Because that's the thing, is like early on in the movie he said, the mum died young because some kid shot her when she got home from work, and the reveal is that was him playing with his dad's gun. So earlier on, when he said, oh, my dad turned into an asshole and drank himself to an early grave, it has a very different context when you find out it was Adam Scott's young self who did the killing, maybe why that kind of set such a ripple through the family. But it's almost like, there's this kind of acceptance of forgiving himself, because that's the thing. Earlier in the film, he tries to kill himself. At the end of the movie, he's having to fight to survive. He's having to fight to get out of this basement. He's having to fight through the flames. And he actually does pass out when he's on his way out of the honeymoon suite. And it's actually, of all people, Fergal shows back up. He came back and he sees him and is able to carry him out to safety. And that's kind of your big kind of climax. And I think the thing that I really want to get across here, because obviously we have to sort of go through the plot in a fairly quick fashion, is I really want to get across the anticipation and the way it plays with the suspense of how is he going to get out of that room? How is he going to signal for help? And the build of the bell ringing and Jerry not hearing it because he's outside, but then is he going to be able to ring it again when Jerry's inside? All of that suspense is so well done, and you're just sort of on the edge of your seat, trying to be is this going to be it? Is this going to pay off? Again, it's just such a good sense of geography where you've got one character up there doing something to try and alert someone downstairs, and you understand where the sound's going to come from, so you know where he has to be roughly to hear it. It just, everything works because everything's been established, and it just makes sense. So, really good stuff on all that side of things. And then the fact that you actually have some real creepy images with the witch's face coming out of the darkness and climbing up the walls and all that other stuff is really good.
Yeah, I mean, it just every level of it works. As a horror movie, there's legitimately very creepy, spooky stuff. That's all great, but then there is actual themes and character arcs and stuff that you can look at and be this movie is not just hey, let's throw some spooky stuff out there and give you some jump scares or whatever. It's oh no, there's I guess kind of every aspect of it, there's thought put behind this.
Something as simple as the witch is supposed to be punishing people, and Mal gets punished because he killed Fiona and even killed Jerry as well, whereas technically Adam Scott killed someone, but it was an accident, and he has to sort of forgive himself for that in some level. And that's why he's worthy of surviving. There's that running throughout the whole thing. It all comes together, and the payoff to all this is there's a scene in the hospital. It's basically, it kind of mirrors the earlier part of the movie where he wakes up in the hospital again, and this time Albie, the bellboy, shows up to give him a present.
And as an ice cream guy.
Yes, he works at the ice cream parlor, and Adam Scott says, "Take the booze back," implying that he's going to give up drinking because maybe that has been a problem because he's been drinking throughout the whole movie. And Albie confesses that he's there to apologize, and he's like, "What for?" And notably, even at this point, Adam Scott's demeanor towards him, he doesn't actually apologize for being a dick at any point in this scene, but he is a lot more happy to see him. He's very receptive to talking to him. His attitude is very different. You can tell that he's changed from what he was earlier in the movie. But Albie is specifically there to apologize, and he's like, "Apologize for what? What? I was the one that was a dick to you. What are you apologizing for?" And he's like, "Well, did you drink from the flask that was with your stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah, it was whiskey. I drank all of it." It's like, yeah, I spiked that with Jerry's mushrooms, so you were like off your tits the entire night. And you actually get a soundbite of Jerry saying earlier, oh, like these mushrooms let you open your mind up to see what's actually there. Yeah. And it's left ambiguous as to whether or not that's, the case here. Like, was he just seeing stuff because he was on these mushrooms? And the fact that Mal got dragged into somewhere maybe implies that that was the case, but still, it's open. I'm just going to say it's open enough that it's left on kind of like a little moment of him just maybe accepting. Maybe that was completely real. Maybe parts of it weren't real. But either way, he's learned something.
Yeah, and then he also like looks at his wrist and looks like he still has these kind of like shackle marks. So it's kind of like, well, that happened. I feel like in other movies this might annoy me, where it's like, oh, come on, like just tell us, like, did this happen or not? But I kind of like this little added wrinkle, because I think there's like a couple different ways like you can interpret it, which is like, okay, so yeah, like was this stuff in his head, or like was some of it? And I think like where I come down on it is that I feel like all the witch stuff was basically real, but then like the visions of like his mom or that like donkey guy or whatever, like that was maybe like part of the hallucinogenics. But then even with that, like if you can say those were caused by the mushrooms, like it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not real. It's just like, oh well, maybe the mushrooms opened his mind up to see it, as Jerry says. So like there's also, even if you are thinking it's because of the mushrooms, there's still like a possibility that they could be real or whatever. But I think that was like a fun little touch to it.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think what it's more heavily implying is just exactly that, is that it's all real. He was just able to see it in a way that he wouldn't normally because he was on the mushrooms. So I don't think it's in any way trying to belittle anything that you've already seen. But maybe if you actually do interpret it as like, oh no, none of that stuff was actually real, it does maybe point out this idea of like, maybe that's why Fiona did just die in the elevator, because there was no witch. Sure. And it was just kind of like this manifestation. It does sort of say, well, what the hell happened to Mal then down there if there was no witch? Yeah. But that's the thing, even if there was no witch, there was still very much this human monster trying to do it. So there were still real stakes and real things happening, even if the witch stuff wasn't real. But it was so effective that obviously you kind of take it as real. And like you said, he still has his shackle marks, so it's not heavily hinting that this did really happen. But to what extent did he see it in a way that he wouldn't have otherwise, or I don't know. But regardless, it ends in this kind of positive note where he finishes writing his story, and the ending to his story in the desert is that the man turns to the boy and says, "No, you hit my head with the bottle to break it and get the map," and the boy is going to do it, but then decides to throw it away instead and hug the man. So it's kind of this idea of like forgiveness, and like it's not worth the death of one of them. Right. So this is almost like him forgiving his father in a weird way at the end. It's like, Yeah,
I mean, again, it all really works. And then actually, going back just a bit too, I really do like this scene with him and Albie, because it's funny to me because he's like still kind of a dick to him, but it's in like more of a playful way versus like before, where it's like in a mean way.
Oh yeah, because Albie sort of says, "Hey, my manuscript. Hey, since you're just sitting in the hospital, do you want to read that for something to do?" And Adam Scott says, "Haven't I been through enough, Albie?" And he's like, "I'll bring it tonight." And he's like, "Okay." So he's still cracking jokes about it, but it's more friendly this time.
Yeah, like it's just like a nice little like, it doesn't feel like it betrays the character. Like it's not like all of a sudden he's like, this I think we're gonna be good friends or whatever. But it is more of like, I'm still gonna bust your balls, but like I'm not that drunk jerk from before. So I thought that was a really nice touch. And then out of the conquistador stuff, I feel like is like it did throw me for such a loop, but I don't think it is kind of like a nice like beginning and ending to the movie. Like again, like thematically it's it's all working there.
Yeah, at one point in the middle of the movie, he looks at an hourglass and he sees the conquistador and the boy on the sand of the hourglass. Like so again, this is when he's hallucinating quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that moment is in his head. Even if everything else is real, I'm pretty sure that moment's in his head. Would be my guess. But it is interesting though to think there's a mix of what's really happening and what's just like there in his head. And like you said, it makes the most sense that the stuff that's more personal to him is just in his head. But the witch itself is a real threat. But but also at the same time, it is a bit of a standard trope that the ghost of the mum kind of like forgives him so he can forgive himself, kind of thing. But it works. Like, it doesn't dwell on it so much that it gets in the way of anything, even if you're not entirely clicking with it, I don't think. And so much of the movie is based on stuff that's a lot more solid, which is the mechanics. It's the predicament he's in, how he's trapped here, the ways out, the ways he can try and defend himself, the villainous character who's trying to stop anyone from finding him, the ally who might find him if he is able to get a message out. All those pieces all play together very nicely in a way that is very satisfying to watch. So, and then for even if you think, the little conquistador bit at the end's a little bit hokey and I'm not really into that, that's okay, because the main ending to the movie is no, the witch got the bad guy and you get to feel satisfied by that. And it's nice that Fergal showed up to be no, he was actually a good guy the whole time. He's just a bit of a dick, much like Adam Scott's character.
Yeah. Although I do kind of worry now, is the witch just free now if the whole place burned down? Is there anything stopping her from just wreaking havoc?
I would probably stay out of that forest. Would be my my recommendation. Maybe the basement's still there. I don't know.
It could be, yeah. And I very seldom am I I want to see a prequel for this thing or whatever. But part of me is kind of it would be interesting to see how that witch got trapped there. I don't know if the owner was saying that he did it himself, or I don't know if he inherited this hotel and the witch was already there or whatever. But I was it's an interesting story there.
He's a pretty old guy. I don't know. He's not actually that big a part of the movie, to be honest. You see him early on talking to the kids, and then he's alluded to a couple of times, but he's not actually a character all that much in the movie. I mean, I honestly think that you just leave it as is. I'm not saying that I wouldn't be interested if he wanted to do more with this world, but honestly, go on, do something new again. Do another new movie. And
I don't know if I would necessarily want him to do it. I think maybe what seems kind of interesting, if you compare it to Aunt Gladys getting her own movie based off of weapons, but what's interesting about that is I think Zach Kreger is writing the script or helping with the story, but then someone else is directing it, which kind of seems like maybe the way to do it, where it's the creator has input and maybe they can help pick the director or something, but then they're free to go off and do their own thing.
I was not entirely sure that's a good idea though, that one either, to be fair.
Oh no, I mean, that's one I'm less interested in, but I mean, you never know though. On paper, if you ask me if it's needed, I would say no, but then there's sometimes random stuff like that comes out and it's oh, this is actually pretty good. So.
No, movie's really good. is basically, and it's called Hokum because when he first hears about this witch in the haunted room, he just calls it Hokum, right? That's all it is. It's a bunch of nonsense. So
it's kind of funny because it's not necessarily I know what the word means, but it's not something you hear that often. But I I work from home, so usually we'll have something on in the background or whatever, and I just randomly put The Mummy on earlier, and I feel like they say Hokum a lot in that movie.
Which mummy?
The Brendan Fraser one. Okay. Yeah. Not Lee Cronan's.
Well, I didn't think it was Lee Cronan's, but I thought it could be, the Universal. Could be a Hammer movie. Could have maybe been the Tom Cruise one if you're really feeling miserable about yourself. So cool. No, movie's very good. Yeah, but I mean, there's also lots of little moments we didn't even mention, like when he runs back up from the basement. I think that's when he runs and he falls into like the hot tub that's filled with filthy water, and it's just kind of gross. And just before he gets to the bed, or just these little creepy extra moments that are there, where there's a noise or there's something kind of, like a creepy shot of him looking around. There's a lot of stuff exploring the room that, there isn't much to talk about when you're just sort of going through a plot, but it's effective in the build-up.
Yeah, like, it's hard to describe, but like I was riveted, by all of it.
I mean, I think that described it pretty well. Riveted's a good word.
Sure.
There you go. All right, Tim, what are you rating Hokum out of 10?
Man, this was really good. I said before, this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I was not let down. If anything, it was probably even better than I had hoped for. I think it's a really lean movie. Again, there's not like an ounce of fat like on it, like that. There's just, like not much that I would really take out. Like, again, the one little nitpick I had, it was like that one scene that I was like, I wasn't that crazy about, and then even by the end I was like, okay, maybe seeing how it all fits together, actually, I don't mind it as much. I mean, he's just such a expert like craftsman, really like knocking everything out of the park. Like, I was never bored for a second. I was super into it. I was excited, on the edge of my seat. Couldn't wait to see what happened next. And then the atmosphere was great. It was scary and spooky and everything what it needed to be. So I feel like I can't go. It's hard to go like, to like a perfect score when it's a brand new movie. Like, you might need like another watch or two to see if it can justify that, but I'm gonna go like right below and give it a 9.5. I thought this was utterly fantastic. I loved every minute of it, and I might bump it up to the full 10 after I watch it again, just to make sure. But I love this, absolutely fantastic. After I saw Oddity, I said like, I can't wait to see what he does next, and what he did next ruled. So I can't wait to see what he does next again.
I mean, I didn't realize the debate was going to be 9.5 or 10 there until you started talking about a perfect score. I really liked the movie. I think it's a great movie. I don't think I'm up to those levels of numbers. I think you're whipping it out a little bit easy, frankly. I want to celebrate the things I love more and punish the things I hate. So interesting.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm getting maybe a bit more loosey-goosey with some of my scores, but it's like, when I just really love something and I don't have anything negative to say about it and I'm excited to watch it again, why not go super high up? And when something really pisses me the hell off, why not go right to the bottom,
Yeah, but that's how idiots on the internet rate. Everything's a 1 or a 10, and it's annoying. you need some middle ground. And as I've said repeatedly this year, I'm waging war on mediocrity, which obviously doesn't apply here, but,
right.
A 5 out of 10 pisses me off way more than a 2 out of 10.
That's fair.
In theory. I'm going to regret those words when we watch the next Strangers movie. I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones. All right, so you went with 9.5, you madman. What do I want to give it? I mean, it's at least the 8. I mean, I think probably 8.5. I feel like maybe it could climb to the 9 in time. Maybe repeat viewings would get me up to that 9 level. I feel like for me to immediately give something a 9, it has to really like blow me away. And this was great, and there's such a good craft to it. I think it's arguably, maybe even easily, his best movie. He's getting better with each one, which is just great. So
yeah.
I'm going to go 8.5. I think it's excellent. But you this is reminding me of Barbarian, where, you know, very positive on Barbarian, and then you just whipped out a 10 at the end. I was like, whoa, wow, I didn't realize we're like best of all time levels. Like, what are we talking about here?
I mean, we don't have to be in sync on the scores. Like,
no. I don't want to come across as negative because you're, you know, blowing your loads with 10s and 9.5s. That's all.
I mean, that 8.5 is still a very good score. I mean,
it's a very good score.
Yeah, so
it's the highest I've rated anything since I think Ugly Stepsister. So, you know, that was the last time I gave an 8.5. I'm just saying that for a 9 and up, you have to, like, you need to earn that. Like, I mean, like, you know,
I thought it was earned. Certainly.
I think it's bordering on it, and it may actually grow on me even more in time, honestly. But like, I'm just, you know, right now my gut's like having a hard time saying the 9, but very, very, very good.
Fair.
Highly recommended. As Hokum.
Yeah, which, and again, it's crazy to me that, like, yeah, at the start of this, that I was saying that first review I saw gave it a 4 out of 10, which I mean, I don't have the time to go back and read it, so like, I'm sure they have the justifications, but I don't understand how, you know, even if you don't like some of the elements of it, like, it seems like you really have to be ignoring like the craft and some of the details that go into it, which kind of seems crazy to me. But I mean, again, everyone, you know, has their own take and everything. So
I mean, I'm not going to say much about it, but if I looked at the reviewers' past reviews and I saw higher ratings for, say, some other horror movies that I think are dog shit, then I might go a bit more all in on tearing them to shreds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Like,
4 out of 10 for Hokum, but gave an 8 out of 10 to Smile 2. You know, yeah, all right, okay, go play in traffic.
Yeah, I mean, we're joking, but like, yeah, I don't think anyone should be harassed for, you know, their opinions online or whatever.
No.
It's funny to me, like, even if I see something, I'm like, wow, I really disagree with that. I was like, okay, I'm just not really gonna pay attention to this person. That seems like the normal reaction. Like, the idea that some people have to be like, should probably threaten their family, you know, like, that's insane to me.
All right, well, on that note, next week on the show, we're threatening you with the next Dracula movie from Hammer. We've been working through that franchise over the last like 3 years at this point, and we're doing Dracula AD 1972, which is like the 7th movie in the Hammer Dracula series. So we're going back to that, some old school campiness, so hopefully you'll join us for that on streams. But that is next time on the show. Otherwise, though, obviously you can support everything over at Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Get access to the even more stream segments we do most weeks. Get access to the bonus episodes, which we try and do every month or so. And, you know, check out the back catalogue of those. Maybe get the show a little bit early. But thanks to everyone who already does support us. And you also get bonuses, of course, for the other movie shows that I do with David on Mail Fuzz Movies, such as the Sci-Fi Podcast, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, and the Collector's Cut, where we go through and we do like franchises, we do like seasons of movies, like we'll do like a season on 70s thrillers, or going on right now, we're doing like a John Woo Hong Kong action season. So doing a bunch of those movies, which I'm looking forward to. So, but yeah, that is the show, everyone. That has been Screams After Midnight. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.